Hey everybody, so glad to have you here on our Montessori webinar. Thanks for coming today. Like we said in the email, we weren't actually planning to expand this to everybody, but we had a really good response yesterday. People liked kind of what we were talking about in terms of the three-period lesson, individualized pacing, some of the multisensory curricula that you can use in your homeschool right now, as well as respectful language. So um, with that, I just want to kind of give you a quick overview. I'm going to introduce Antoinette LaGrossa as well as Larry Schiller, who Larry obviously came up with the curriculum about 15 years ago. And Antoinette has been Schiller Mass Director of Sales, I think, since 2004. Is that right, Antoinette?
I started as a sales rep with the company in 2004, and then somewhere along the way, my involvement increased. Not sure exactly when.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
hard. It's hard not to jump in and be involved with this stuff when you see how it works, right?
Yes.
So
And I started homeschooling. I've been homeschooling now for 15 years. Um, and I had started off doing Montessori in the home on my own. I had three little children at the time, now five, and it turned out that I didn't have the time to pull together figuring out what the activities were I was going to be doing with the kids, creating the materials. And, once I did that, I felt, oh, my time is up. I can't actually do it with them. So then we had tried some traditional programs. I'd actually tried three other math programs before discovering Schiller Math. And they were not a good fit for my oldest son. He had hated math. It was just making our day miserable. And we discovered Schiller Math. He was at the point where he refused to do math every day. He was a little older, so we did start with the diagnostic testing. And he just got this look of amazement where, when he was doing that first test, and he said, "This is math. I like this. I'll do it." And literally overnight, he went from not liking it to asking to do math first every day. So my own experience has just been awesome. And we've now used it with all five of the kids. Three kids are now beyond it, but I still do have two left in Kit 1, Kit 2, and fractions also. And then I did want to introduce Larry. Larry is Schiller Math founder and president. Thank you, Larry, for creating such an awesome product. And Larry is the father of three beautiful children and a lifelong math nerd, self-professed, so we can say that. Larry managed to pull off a perfect score on the math SAT, then went on to earn a math degree from MIT, then a business degree from Harvard School of Business. And he worked with child behavioral education and Montessori experts at the Princeton Center for Teacher Education, which is a renowned Montessori teacher training institute, in creating Schiller Math in 2002. Since then, thousands of parents and educators, myself included, have seen the often spectacular outcomes that result when children use Schiller Math. And we invite you to join us in our mission to make a difference for America's math students by helping kids learn and, all importantly, enjoy math. So, Larry?
Thank you, Antoinette, and thank you, James, and welcome everyone to the Montessori Secrets webinar. It's an honor for me to be here. Maria Montessori wanted to find ways for kids to love math, and I did too. And since Montessori opened her first school in 1907, literally millions of children have successfully used her methods. So when I was creating Schiller Math, I thought, gosh, why reinvent the wheel? I read every Montessori book and attended every Montessori lecture I could find. I went to Montessori classrooms and interviewed teachers and students. I probably could easily be certified with all that study and research, but I wanted to make a difference beyond a classroom of just 30 kids and provide a way for parents who may never even have heard of Montessori to benefit without having to do all the research that I did. That's when I came up with the idea of scripted lessons, affordable but high quality manipulatives, catchy songs, and the whole open and go concept that Schiller Math parents love so much today. So if you're a parent with children of ages 3 to 8, this webinar is for you. In just this 1 hour, I'm going to show you specific tips and strategies for your children to reach their full potential. And if you're one of the many math-phobic parents who stress out when it comes to teaching math, I want you to take heart. So many parents have told me how frightened they were to teach math because they were worried their kids would inherit their fear as if it were a disease or something. With Schiller Math, their problem was solved. Today, you'll learn why kids and parents struggle with math, don't have to, and what you can do to make math literally a joy. So my goal today is to provide actionable tips and techniques that you can implement starting right now in your homeschool, including that cute song you heard at the top, which I'll get to shortly. I first want to introduce a key Montessori technique that works wonders. This is the first technique I'll introduce, the first secret, if you will, to eliminate stress with math or, in fact, anything else. It's called the 3-period lesson. And it's always used to introduce anything new, say a hexagon. Now, you all got the free college ebook. You know, we love that, College for 3-year-olds. That's what we're ultimately preparing them for. And this first period or the first step in the Montessori 3-period lesson is this is. Montessori calls this naming, by the way. In this case, in this example, we might hand the child a hexagon and say, this is a hexagon. And now we just let the student explore without any prompting or probing. We let the child figure out how many sides it has, how well it fits or doesn't fit with other hexagons, maybe even ponder why it's called a hexagon. The key to this is to let the child experiment. Let the child play and absorb. Not so much the time to be talking, but just let them, kind of use their brains and explore to the full extent. The second period or step is show me. Now that the thing has a name, it's time to build recognition of that thing and association with other things. So again, they've explored. We'll place several shapes in front of the child and we'll ask, can you show me a hexagon? Usually the child will point at the hexagon, but if the child points at something else or doesn't know, no worries. Go back to step 1. Oh, this is a hexagon. As if it were for the first time. Now, the third period is what is. We'll know the child gets it when the child is what Montessori calls recall. Point at the hexagon. What is this called? If the child knows, great. Next lesson, please. Otherwise, no worries. Go back to step 1. Oh, this is a hexagon. Can you show me a hexagon? What's this called? Easy peasy and no stress. Now, tomorrow's a new day, and kids are on computers. They forget sometimes, and they forget at different paces from other kids. And if they do, again, we just go back to the first step. Oh, this is a hexagon. The trick to making this work, because parents want to help, they want to explain, is to understand that you help not so much by explaining, but giving the child freedom to explore. It might help to think of yourself maybe not as much of a teacher, but more of, say, a learning assistant, creating the ideal environment, both physical and emotional, not for you to teach, but for your children to learn, which may go a long way towards explaining why public schools don't work very well and why Montessori schools, when you walk in, the environment's amazing. It's for kids. They have tiny chairs and tables and sinks and toilet seats. It's not a place for an adult to sit or go to the bathroom for that matter. All right. As a parent, you have incredible power to influence your children's environment and education. And the 3-period lesson is a great way to use it. It's part of the Montessori philosophy that says, teach, don't correct. Because when students learn to identify their own mistakes, they're really learning. That's what we want to give them the ability to do. It's going to help them set their own pace, which we'll talk about in a moment. And we'll also talk about mistakes and how to deal with them in a different upcoming webinar. It's such a huge topic on its own that actually deserves its own webinar. Okay, so parents who use the 3-period lesson are very well rewarded with curious and capable children. Those kids may still write on the walls, but your home will be a learning palace. All right, let's talk about how we can implement individualized pacing for these kids. They're certainly pacing the way they're learning things with a 3-period lesson. But we, at Schiller Math, we've come up with this concept that we call the 2Cs. And they stand for competency and closure. Now, we all recognize competence when we see it. And by the way, these pictures are from, James found this awesome YouTube video. It's great. And it's about, really explains this whole concept of competence in video and closure in pictures. Competence is the primary goal of nearly every learning system, Schiller Math included. But you know, there's 3 dangers that lurk when competence is the sole focus. By the way, I just want to let you know, as I'm talking, you are more than welcome to chat and add questions. I know Antoinette has posted something there. So if anything I'm saying doesn't, completely, resonate with you, please let us know, and we can cover that in more detail. All right, I want to talk about the 3 dangers that are there when competence is the sole focus. It may sound odd, right? A little unconventional, but hear me out. First, have you ever seen your child get something and yet she wants to repeat that lesson over and over and over and over? This usually happens when the learning style of the child matches the learning style of the lesson. They're both kinesthetic, they're both visual, whatever. Our first impulse is to say, oh, honey, I see you've got this. Why don't we move on? But actually, that's counterproductive. Through repetition driven by the child, she's building interesting connections and pathways in the brain that are the core of a solid foundation. Montessori says, never interrupt a focused and concentrated child. So resist the urge to intervene. We even suggest walking away, saying, I'm so impressed by your focus and concentration. I'm going to tend to the garden. Let me know when you're ready to move on. That's one danger. The danger of wanting to get involved and move the child along because they have confidence. Let them get closure. The second danger is that by stressing the importance of the result, competence, parents are in a way teaching that the process is not as important as the result. People say, oh, if only I could do this, I'd be happy. But, most people, happy people, realize that happiness is a process. We get that process down, we're basically always going to be happy. It's really no different with math. It's true in business, as well as in life. Having a great process results in much better outcomes and well-being. And that's why saying, I'm so impressed by your focus and concentration sends a reassuring message that their process is good and provides comfort to the child that the result will be too. And the third danger is when the educator pushes the child to move on before that child has closure, the child will experience anxiety. The child will not be given the opportunity as well to become aware, self-aware of the fact that they're going through a process. Now, we really work on kind of metacognition at Schiller Math. We don't call it that anywhere, but that's really what we're trying to focus on. Teach kids to be self-aware of how to learning and how to learn in general. So the more a child is self-aware of the process of learning, of achieving the 2 Cs, the greater the increase in that child's capacity for learning. So let's not remove that great ability building just because we're focusing on competence. Now, in terms of closure, that's the second C, is letting that student get closure on their own terms. They may get it, but boy, she spent, look at this picture, she spent hours working on this thing till she got it. Moving on before that child has closure would create anxiety in this girl. And it's going to hinder development of those very valuable focus and concentration skills. I've often wondered why so many kids today have ADD and ADHD. And I believe it's often because adults don't let them get closure. At Schiller Math, we've seen children work in the same lesson for 3 days in a row, and I think that's awesome. It's a great thing. They're getting closure. By the way, this is often when children will ask, and parents love this, for additional practice or to be drilled. They're in this, they get it, they're excited, they don't have closure yet. They're having a lot of fun. They're getting it, they're starting to feel self-confident, and they're seeking 3 things from you: approval, encouragement, and praise. And by all means, give them all 3. And give them all the drills they can handle. Now, keep in mind, this is what's hard. You may have closure because you see that he has competence, but resist the temptation to assume that your child has closure too. It's really hard, actually, to do this because it requires not doing anything. It's the hardest thing of all sometimes. Your patience will be rewarded with a much more self-confident and capable child. You know, in a typical classroom, the teacher observes that a student's achieved mastery, and they encourage the student to move on. There's a schedule to keep, or the bell rings. Either way, the student is left with anxiety of not achieving that closure. That is a cornerstone principle of Schiller Math and Montessori, and it's one you can start using in your homeschool right now. By the way, the sure sign of a top-notch educator is when a student develops the ability for themselves to know when he or she has both confidence and closure. That self-awareness is awesome. Now, every time your child does a lesson, and let me just check here and see if there's any comments or questions here. We have a quiet group, okay, which is fine.
So I wanted to, hey Larry.
Yeah. James,
so I wanted to ask everybody. So, just for everybody in the room, do you guys feel like you could implement these tips in your homeschool today? I'm just asking everybody as a question, just so we can kind of gauge and see where we can help you improve your homeschool and what we can add into what we're still talking about.
I'll give a little music.
Get ready for a hold down. I'm a little old man with a little old fiddle and a fiddle and a fiddle all day long. I play notes up high, notes down low.
All right. Well, let's see. All right, we finally got a comment, but so let me move on and with the 3 lesson outcomes and see if this resonates as well. What we've discovered at Schiller Math is that every single time your child does a lesson, there are 3 and only 3 possible results, and they're basically a function of competence and closure. So here's how, and by the way, in schools, typically all 3 outcomes are bad. They're bad outcomes. Either, well, we'll see as we go through them. So the first case is where the child gets fast competency and fast closure. They get it, but they're ready to move on. They don't want to drill, they don't want to practice, and this usually happens, strangely enough, when the learning style of the student is different than that of the lesson, because they're not that interested in it. So if the kid's kinesthetic and they want to run and jump and dance around, and the lesson is visual or involves writing, that child, the lesson requires him to sit and hold a pencil and draw something. That child just wants to run around and jump and dance, and they're going to want to be done with that lesson as quickly as possible. So they get it, but repetition or drilling in this case is not appropriate. It's only going to foster frustration in them. It's making them do something they really don't want to do. They have no interest in doing, and there's no benefit from forcing them to do it. So after all, they got it. All right, so in this case, it's best to move on. Wait for another lesson that covers the same material from that kinesthetic or other learning style, closer to the child's, and then you'll find that they'll take a lot of time on that lesson. It's exactly the same material. They're just seeing it from another learning style. And that's when they're going to maybe take 3 days and get their closure. So fast competency and fast closure, they get it right away. They're done with it. Means next lesson, please. All right, let's take a look at the next case, second or third cases, which is fast competency and slow closure. And then this is what we've been talking about primarily for the last 10 minutes. The child gets it, they like it, enough said, we let them do their own thing. Now, James, I love this. It's very funny, this poor kid. I mean, I'm empathetic to him.
The full video is
myself.
unbelievably hilarious. I might send that out in the notes for everybody, because the kid spends a full 2 minutes just having a time. Dad's just sitting there laughing.
I particularly enjoyed that too.
Yeah.
And it's also, for me, it's a bit autobiographical, because I'm the world's worst golfer, so this was like perfect.
Well, I don't know about that. I shot a 90 on 9 holes of golf, so we might be in the weeds together.
I think so. Sounds like it. So what about the poor kid? Well, obviously the student doesn't get it, closure or not, and the 3-period lesson doesn't seem to be sticking. In this case, the most likely explanation is that, the child's simply not developmentally ready for this lesson. This particular child's clearly not emotionally ready either. Now, another possibility is that there's a learning style mismatch, and no amount of prodding is going to change that reality. If there's a learning style mismatch, we're not going to magically, fix that. So let's pay attention to what reality is and not judge it. Whatever the cause, we suggest putting that lesson aside for now. making it a lesson to revisit on the completed worksheet, which comes with every lesson book. And I think, do we have that somewhere? I think in yesterday's webinar, we were able to show you what that looked like. By
Yeah,
all
the completed
means,
worksheet's on the next slide.
oh, it's the next slide. Great. Thank you. Perfect. So this is simple, but what I love about this worksheet is the student writes, they can write their own name, but after every lesson, they initial it. Kids love that. They love to, it inspires them to do more work. It's really interesting. At any rate, with this lesson that they didn't get, it inspires them to want to revisit that. We want to set up an environment where they're inspired to revisit it. But they're going to get a second, third, and fourth shot at revisiting that same concept from different learning styles. Now, by itself, drilling doesn't promote understanding. When actually, when a student doesn't get it, the worst thing we can do is to drill, because the result is going to be low self-esteem. It's going to be unnecessary anxiety. The child's going to be thinking, what's wrong with me? I'm supposed to be able to get this. What's wrong with me that I can't get this? How awful for the kid. Better to say something like, oh, I see that you are not developmentally ready for this lesson. And use that word, use that language. Let's put it aside for now and revisit it tomorrow or in a few days. At this point, even though they may not have quite understood your language, a child will take, they got it though, they'll take one of two attitudes. I'm not quite sure I understood what you said, but I got the part about putting it aside for a few days. And I like, in this case, you can know to revisit this lesson on the completed worksheet. The other possible response we might get from a student when we tell them, I'm not sure you're developmentally ready for this. Maybe we could put this aside for a few days. Another response that we've seen kids give is, what do you mean I'm not? Whatever it is you said, ready to do this. I'm ready. I want to try. In this case, also great. This is really putting the child in charge of their own learning, which ultimately they are. Your child is taking charge. This is awesome. He or may experience some angst and even some tears before completing the lesson. But as long as your child wishes to continue, this angst is actually the good kind. It's not the anxiety of the bad kind, the external pressure, where, oh, you got to do this material today because, you better get it now. It's time to move on. I'm not talking about that. This is great angst because it's self-driven by the student. They are willing to struggle to understand it. Now, what I'm about to say may be a bit controversial, but I can guarantee you that it works. When your child has decided to do the work and he's struggling, I recommend that you stand back and let them struggle. This is the hardest thing for a parent to do. Resist the urge to help with the math. All you need to do is to say something like, empathetically, I see this is so hard for you, but I'm impressed that you are working so hard on trying to understand it. And then trust your child and walk away saying, if you need help, I'm here for you. When your child does finally get it, the joy of discovery is a reward he or she will strive to experience again and again. How wonderful is that? If there's nothing else in this webinar that we talk about, this situation where kids are struggling, but they're driving their education, we need to stand back as parents and let them grow, let them make mistakes. They're learning from their mistakes. And again, this is something I talk a lot more about in our mistakes webinar. But I want to mention it here because it is so important. Now, I have a suspicion that several questions have crossed your mind. Like, what do you mean? We hear this because we do hear these. What do you mean go on without doing drills? How's my child going to learn without drilling? Or let her repeat something over and over when she obviously already gets it? What a waste of time. That doesn't make any sense. There's a lot to get to. We can't waste time on doing something she already knows. Or put the work aside for a few days. Listen, we've got a schedule to stick to, and we're going to fall behind if we do that. Besides, how can we go and build on something he doesn't know? All right, so these are good questions, but they're kind of based on this public school mentality. They really get to the heart of why our public schools aren't working and why your homeschool does when you use ShillerLearning. So, again, going on without doing drills, remember, learning styles need to match before that's going to happen. When a child does a lesson quickly and wants to move on, there isn't a need for drill. They'll have that opportunity later. So you've got all the tools now to overcome those major roadblocks that the public schools introduce. All right, enough of this little kid. I feel so bad for that kid. And I'm also feeling bad for my own golf game here as well. let's talk about respectful language and Montessori's emphasis on that. And yeah, and maybe it's time for some more unconventional Montessori wisdom. I know for myself, I just don't like being bossed around, being told what to do. And I have the feeling my children might have felt the same way. And Montessori suggests that educators, for that and other reasons, be very careful with their language, both spoken language and written language. For example, the words should, need to, and ought to are not used in the Schiller Math curriculum. Unless in language arts, they're words, so we introduce them, but we don't use them in the language. Because they're inconsistent with the student being in charge of his or her own learning. Those words and phrases tend to sap a student's internal strength and motivation. I know they do mine. When tempted to use these or similar words or phrases, consider some alternatives that Montessori recommends. One is using the word may. For example, instead of saying, you should put your work away, you may say, you may put your work away. And do you see how I just did that? I actually used the word may in saying that. It is so effective and so respectful. Another way to do it is to ask a question. The Socratic method is such a great way for kids to learn. So I try to use it in the curriculum, and we've really gotten a great response to that. It's very hard to do. There's some wonderful videos, by the way. I saw a video. I think you can Google this and find it. And I contacted the author about it. He did a Socratic Socratic method video to second graders, and he taught them the binary system. It was fantastic. And so if you can find that, if I can find the link, I'll send it. James, maybe we can give that to everybody.
Yeah,
because,
that'd be great.
That
I'll take a look at that.
Yeah, I mean, it'll just really, in a nutshell, explain what's going on with that Socratic method. But instead of saying you ought to put your work away, you might say, do you think it's a good idea to put your work away when you're done? Is that respectful to the environment? And so on. Now, Montessori recommends speaking to a student only after making intimate eye contact. And this type of eye contact only can occur if both sets of eyes are at the same height level. It doesn't work if you're standing above or below the student. That said, achieving same level eye contact by bending at the waist does not imply the respect required for the student to engage readily. So instead, sit or bend at the knees, which is also better for your body. Now, when speaking, Montessori says to be aware of one's tone of voice. Adults achieve best results when using a calm and respectful voice, even when expectations are not negotiable. Now, there's a couple of exceptions to this. If there's danger, if your child's going to run out on the street and there's a car coming, loud voices and physical, actually being physical is perfectly appropriate because you're preventing your child from danger. But in most other situations, the calm and respectful voice almost universally will get a much better outcome. Now, the volume of one's voice makes a difference in how kids respond. They're used to adults speaking to them in loud voices a lot. And when a parent or teachers or other adult first uses a low volume voice, she commands attention because the kid's going to find it pretty extraordinary. After the novelty wears off, the warm and supportive communication, even if it's firm, will continue to promote student attention and responsiveness. People do, in general, whatever age, respond better to a low volume voice. I've tried this at meetings where I'll just start speaking in a much softer voice and slower. And I find people just stop and they really want, it must be important. You don't have a need to yell it out. And finally, with a Montessori approach, it's all about helping kids grow as they're developmentally ready. So when a student can read, here's a great example of that. When a student can read on his or her own, because Schiller Math is scripted. And so, at one point, a 6-year-old typically or a 7-year-old will say, hey, Mom, hey, Dad, I see you reading this. I can read. I can do that. And when that happens, awesomeness. It's like, great, honey, you're in charge. Go for it. You can read. I'm gonna go fold my dress for tonight's party. And listen, you need any help? Let me know. It's great. They're now growing up. They're given this opportunity to be independent. Schiller Math provides that, and it makes it pretty obvious too when they're actually able to reach that level, which is a great thing. There are some words here, phrases that we've been talking about, and it's just kind of a smattering of stuff. There are cases when uh, uh, I'm just trying to think of, expanding on this a little bit. There are definitely, we're not suggesting that we not be firm with kids. If we've had a discussion and had a previous agreement that a particular type of behavior is not appropriate, and they know it, but, people are computers and they do it, you could just simply say, a one-word phrase for that, like, whatever that word is, for messy or something, and give them a wink, and they'll know exactly what it is you're talking about, and they'll be able to clear, take care of that problem. So there's second order techniques that work very, very well with this. We've alluded to multisensory learning, and we've had some songs that have been. Let me see if I can play one of these right now. That's coming on. I wanted to play Even and Odd. It's Antoinette's favorite song. I think it's mine too. And I'm bringing it up here. I'm finding a way to play this. Here we go. All right, great. People, different people learn different things. Oh, let me bring this up. Some people are visual.
That is my favorite.
Yay! Some people are visual, where pictures tell the whole story. And is this too loud for everybody, or is this okay?
I think the volume was good.
Okay, all right, I'll leave it there.
A little louder?
James, are you okay hearing this? Is it
touch louder?
Yeah, if you can make it a little bit louder, that'd be good.
The music, okay, got it.
Right there, yeah, that's good.
And for our participants, if there's anyone that would like to see a sound change, let me know. So people are drawn to visual, they're drawn to pictures. Other people are drawn to sounds. They love to sing. Other people are drawn to movement. Anything that's got movement, that's going to sink in. If they're dancing, they're having the best possible time. They're really open-minded. And then tactile is really touching things. And I'd like to talk a little bit about, the difference in neurons between each of these learning styles, because they're really different. Obviously, visual is the eyes, it's the retina, and auditory is obviously the ears and the ear canal, and how that connects to the brain. But by using their hands, students fire a completely different set of neurons in the brain. These are the neurons near the surface of the skin, not to be confused with the neurons in the muscles that kinesthetic activity fires. So kids with a tactile learning style, they like to play with the manipulatives, but and so those kids, it's important to note that those manipulatives that they play with have a wide variety of weight, size, color, for visual, shape, texture, right, and volume. These are all things that impact. I think I got them all. Because that variety is going to maintain their interest over time. It's one of the reasons the Schiller math kit weighs 20 pounds. And it's critical for kids to have manipulatives that keep up with their developmental changes. A curriculum, for example, that comes with one primary manipulative, I don't know, say like an abacus, often results in kids quickly getting tired of working with that one manipulative, and the curriculum doesn't get used. The other learning style, kinesthetic, and a lot of people confuse kinesthetic and tactile, and two things couldn't be more different. Where tactile are the nerve endings in the skin, kinesthetic neurons are in the large muscle groups. They're in the muscles. There are muscle neurons in the thighs, in the abs, and in the shoulders. And so by exercising those neurons, we're reaching a completely different part of the brain than things that we're doing with our hands. And, for the auditory, people love those songs. We just get so many compliments in those. They were done for us by Ron Brown of IntelliTunes. He wrote them specifically for Schiller Math to integrate into the curriculum. We have the exclusive license. You can't get them anywhere else. Now, concrete to abstract, we're talking about the body to the mind. This is a natural follow-on to that. Fun fact of the day, the frontal lobes do not fully develop until age 26. Car rental companies certainly know this for sure. with the way they changed their rental rates. All of a sudden, magically, you're 25 or 26, and your rates get cheaper. All right. Well, the frontal lobes are where critical thinking takes place, and that's an abstract thought process for sure. When a child is young, they learn through concrete work and play. They play with blocks, they paint with colors, they dance, they sing to music, they listen to the sounds of our world. They're learning using their bodies and senses. So when we work with our children, we'll have best success when we start with the concrete and then move carefully and slowly from concrete to abstract. Move too fast, we're going to lose the child. Keep in mind that fantasy and abstraction are two different things. Kids are extremely creative with fantasy play from an early age. Abstraction takes time to develop. Now, Antoinette has this great video that she made of seeing this in action, where we're using the Schiller Math decimal material to concretely to show how kids can add two 4-digit numbers.
We're going to take a look at a problem doing 4-digit addition with exchange, that carrying. Now, before doing a problem like this, the child would have played the exchange game, where they're exchanging 10 ones for a 10, 10 tens for 100, and 10 hundreds for the 1,000, and doing that both ways and getting really comfortable with exchanging out those place values. Now in this problem, we're taking 2,345 and adding that with 1,483. The book takes you through exactly how to lay these out, asking your child to get the materials and the cards from your materials bank and the numbers bank. So once the child has everything laid out, then you're going to have them do exactly with the manipulatives in the concrete the ultimate goal of what they're going to do in the abstract. So we're going to bring down our ones. So we've got the 5 and the 3. So they're going to bring down the physical manipulative, and that's 8 ones. They'll lay out the card for that. Then we're going to take our 10s and bring those down. So we've got 4 and 8, and that's 12. Well, at this point, the student knows that, okay, well, once I get to 10 of any of the place values, I need to exchange that. And so they're going to take 10 of those hundreds, leaving the 2 10s there, and exchange those for 100. And that manipulative will get placed above the hundreds column, exactly like they'll do later on abstractly with pencil and paper. Then we're going to bring down those hundreds. So the 1, the 3, and the 4. So we've got the 800s. And then we're going to bring down the thousands. The 2 and the 1. And so that's 3,000. And so we've got 2,345 plus 1,483 equals 3,828. Beautifully concrete illustration of a usually abstract concept.
So yeah, that was a great demonstration video, Antoinette. We really liked that. I think we'll probably have to do more like that.
I love
Thank
that.
you, James. Thank you, Larry.
Yeah. It's just completely awesome. And doesn't everyone agree? Isn't that just a wonderful way for kids to learn this? And Antoinette just demonstrated that perfectly. It's so powerful. And so kids, Brenda, I saw you. I'm sorry?
Oh, I was just saying that it is so powerful. That was one of the things that I just couldn't believe how magical that worked with my son when we had switched into Schiller Math.
Yeah, great. Yeah, magical was a great word for it because it does seem like magic sometimes when kids have been struggling with these concepts. Brenda, I saw a comment from Brenda that they have been really zooming through the material, but she feels like maybe her children aren't learning the math facts and that they're slow at computing. And Brenda, what I would say is a couple of things. One, first, be sure you're giving them the opportunity to get closure and have them be self-aware of that notion of closure because they may be reacting to external signals that makes them feel like they're going to get rewarded the faster they go through the material. And so that's just one possible danger that's lurking there. We're all under that kind of societal pressure to go through things quickly. But the freedom to get closure on their own terms is such a powerful, you have that power, and it is so attractive and magical in its own way. The other thing about it is if they are getting closure on everything, they in fact may know their math facts. They're just not expressing it in the way that adults typically like to see them. So that as they work with these facts over time and they practice computing, one day magically a switch is going to turn. And really, there's no rushing that, and there's no right age for that to happen. But trust me, it will happen. It happens with every one of our students, and will happen with yours. And also, if there's any specific tips, or if you'd like to show us videos of what is actually happening with the kids, we'll be happy to take a look at those and provide you with direct one-on-one support for that. So this is concrete to abstract, and now I want to talk about one of the ways that kids actually do some kind of computing, and this might help as well, Brenda, with yours and with everyone's kids to understand this concept of subitizing and how actually kids are computing, because we don't compute like computers. We compute like humans, and it's a little bit different. And we use this concept of subitization, which is the ability to see a small number of objects and know exactly how many there are without counting. So basically, it's developing number sense. And we want to be sure kids have that. Jean Piaget developed the concept as a scientist and educator in the 20th century. And Schiller Math really likes this concept and develops this ability with several different manipulatives. So, think about it. Who counts dots on a die? We don't look at a die and say, oh, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, it's got 4 dots, that's a 4. We just know. Studies have been done on animals, by the way, and they also know. They can subitize. It's not simply a human trait. But people do subitize all the time. We don't even realize it. And playing with dice is a great way for kids to gain number sense and subitization skills. Now with dominoes, which is the picture here in the example, they're subitizing too, and it really in a deeper way. Where dice help with simple subitization, dominoes go a step further. With our Schiller Math, we have a double 9 domino set in kit 1. When a child sees a 9 domino with on one side with 3 rows of 3, this domino happens to have, both sides are double 9. They're actually, think about this, they're actually subitizing multiplication, 3 times 3. They can look at 3 times 3 visually, and they subitize that as 9. And they also are subitizing, in a way, the multiplication. How cool is that? That's really amazing. And so at Schiller Math, we use dice, dominoes, we use coins, unit cubes, number tiles. I think there might be a couple of other manipulatives to develop this subitization ability from the earliest ages. Now, everybody loves music. Let me see if I can find another song for you guys to play. I've got, we'll bring up right, left. It's the first song.
And that one was always my kids' favorite.
Yeah, kids really like this. I think one of the reasons they like it is because the lesson also involves kinesthetic, activities where they're raising their hands and their legs and doing funny things, and they do it along with the parent. It's a lot of fun.
I cannot tell you how many times I have danced to this song with 5 kids.
We find this is one of our most popular songs. And, virtually everyone loves music. And people memorize the tune and the words. Music is great for memory development. And I'm assuming it's good music. Without a strong song component in your child's math curriculum, he's going to miss out on a very enjoyable and effective way to learn math. our Kit 1 does come with a 25 songs audio CD. And again, those songs are written specifically for us by Ron Brown. Every few lessons, there's a new song to listen to. It's great. Now, we've talked a lot about these principles, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about how Schiller Math, how you can have comfort that Schiller Math is actually implementing these things and how we're actually doing it. And there are basic 4 ways that we do it. First, it's proven because it uses the Montessori method. And that works for all students. That's the beauty of Montessori. You know, there's gifted programs and there's LD programs. We teach everybody because Montessori works for everybody. She started her school with the outcasts of society, poor kids, the learning disabled, the physically disabled. And after 6 months, they started outperforming the rich kids in their schools. That's how she got noticed originally. That's what we want to do with Schiller Math, is provide an education for everybody that's effective, that lets each student reach their own potential. And Montessori has proven that that works. And we've had thousands of success stories over 15 years. It's designed for homeschoolers. Schiller Math is not a repurposed school curriculum. Our manipulatives they're gorgeous. They're long-lasting. The books include prescriptive diagnostic tests that pinpoint holes and prescribe the exact lessons that will fill them. We have in our Larry's Club, if the manipulatives, for some reason, and you're a member of Larry's Club, if your manipulatives break or whatever, you lose a tile or something, call us. We'll replace it free, including shipping in the continental United States. Our customer support's legendary, thanks to Antoinette and her leadership. And so you know you're going to have access to that. And then it's also very convenient for homeschool. There's no lesson preparation. You don't need to know Montessori. You don't even need to know math. The kits are open and go for everyone. Open the box, gather your child, and she's learning math. Our multi-year kits means that you'll have everything you need for several years. It's a consistent and powerful solution. You don't have to go looking every year at these inventions. And that saves you money. One kit serves all children in the family. Consumable lessons are free. You don't have to be buying stuff for each child. For the typical homeschool family, the average cost, this is surprising, parents hear this, they can't believe it. It's just $20 per year per child. Imagine that. So it's not to mention all the time that you're going to save as well. Now, before we get to the Q&A, James has a special link to share with you as our webinar attendees.
Yeah, I just wanted to basically offer you guys, if you guys haven't, it sounds like we've already got some folks who are big fans of Schiller Math on this webinar. So hopefully, you know, everything we shared with you. I know somebody said that you wish it had these tips last year, but if you haven't gotten in on Kit 1 yet, we're offering 10% off plus free shipping, and we're also offering a $25 discount and free shipping on our language arts kit that we just released too, if you get it with the Math Kit 1. So for those of you who haven't had a chance to kind of try it out, I believe we have a 60-day money-back guarantee. Is that right, Larry?
Actually, I think it's 30 days, but
Okay.
I will tell you that our return rate is less than 1%.
Yeah, I believe that. I believe that. Once people see it, it's pretty powerful. So yeah, if you guys want to get that, it's definitely something that we highly recommend for new parents to jump into. If you're still kind of considering it and looking at different curriculum out there, definitely email us there. And obviously, we're going to jump into QA so that we can go ahead and answer any questions you guys have. And if you want, you can email Larry directly. Also, if you already have Kit 1 and you're thinking about getting Kit 2, or maybe there's the fractions kit that you're looking at getting for some of your older kids, we're also willing to do a 10% off promo for that too, if you guys are interested in getting something else that you might not have yet.
All right, terrific. So let me just put up my email. That's our toll-free phone line that will reach our expert support staff. You're welcome to email me directly if you have any questions or comments or suggestions. In the meantime, do we have any QA? We've been looking at comments as we've been going. If there's no comments in the chat box at this point, and you do think of something later, then this is how you may reach us, or you can also email support or Antoinette at ShillerMath.com. And I would ask, if you found this valuable, that you please tell a friend, both in person and on your social media. Please spread the word. We're really trying to make the world a better place. We're trying to change the world, help our kids be educated, so that we, if we haven't left a great world for them, at least they'll be able to make one for themselves. So please do tell a friend, and post on social media what an awesome webinar this was if you liked it. And if there's anything that you didn't like, I'd love to hear about that too. And please do send that to my direct email address. But I want to thank James for doing all the legwork to set this up. I want to thank Antoinette for so many things, and including helping me tremendously with creating this webinar. She's been a tremendous help with providing feedback from herself and parents on the curriculum, which constantly improves. We're a continuous curriculum improvement company, so we keep the curriculum constantly improving. And we are very proud about that. And Antoinette has just done so much to help us grow and have a great product. And James is helping us tell people about it. So I want to thank both of you very, very much for your hard work.
And at this point, let me mention too, thank you, Larry. And I wanted to jump in and mention that, speaking of awesome improvements to the curriculum, we do have a brand new edition of Lesson Book 3 coming in shortly. And if you are already a Kit 1 customer, contact us and we would be happy to send you out a complimentary copy of this brand new Lesson Book 3. Larry's made some awesome changes.
Yes, we really took a lot of feedback, and very excited about this new Lesson Book 3. You can keep the one you have if you like it, but if you want a free copy and you live in the continental United States, we'll be happy to send you one.
Definitely.
So I think, yep, James?
Looks like Brenda had a question about Kit 1, 2, and fractions. She's asking how to integrate the kits with fractions. Larry, you kind of have a little bit of insight on that?
I do, and I bet Antoinette does.
Yes, the fractions kit, it's up to you when you want to add fractions to the math work. It's most commonly added to the math work along with either book 2 or 3 in Kit 1. Some people will do it even earlier than that. Some people, not many, but will wait until later. However, once you're about halfway through book 3, you're going to want to introduce at least fractions into the, because they're going to be using those in measurement. Now, as far as how that's added into the math work, again, that's up to you, and you can let your child choose when they want to do fractions. Some people like to do fractions, one day a week, their math time is spent on fractions. Others like to break that up. Just be aware, though, that if you are homeschooling in a state that requires standardized testing, you're going to want to introduce fractions before your child is going to see them on a standardized test. For instance, I homeschool in Pennsylvania. We are required to start testing in 3rd grade, and there are certainly fractions on those. So I tend to introduce it along with book 2 in Kit 1. I hope that helps. Larry, do you have any additional recommendations to that?
That was great. And, one of the things about, we're always at Schiller Math, we're always looking for ways to give kids developmentally appropriate choices to make. And this is a great example of one. Now, you may have this external requirement of having to do fractions earlier, which takes a little bit of that choice away. But otherwise, if the child's working on book 2 and all right, they've had enough, and hey mom, let me try something different. There's the fractions book. It's right there, and they can go back and forth and switch between them as often as they like. So it's a developmentally appropriate choice that kids can make for themselves, and And it works very well. We've had great success stories with that approach with math. Fractions is the kind of thing it can span several years. Some kids will do it quickly; they'll do it in 6 months. Other kids will break it out over 5 years. It's really up to your child and your individual environment.
And then one other asterisk to the fractions kit is you will get to a point, it's in the later part of the fractions book, where it'll tell you to stop and not go any further until you reach a certain lesson in book 6, because the child needs that skill to progress beyond that.
Yeah, great, Antoinette. Yeah, we cover, we say it's through pre-algebra, but it's actually some algebra in book 6. And we want to be sure we introduce that in a consistent way with the fractions, so the learning is congruent at that point. Well, I don't see any other questions coming in, so and we're almost up to basically come up to the end of our hour. So I also want to thank our participants in this webinar. Really appreciate you all coming and taking the time out of your very busy day to hear and learn about these tips, and I hope that you'll be able to use these in your homeschool.
Yeah, I actually have a question for all the attendees, and just to echo that, thanks again for coming on. Is there something that you guys felt? Is there like a section on this that you guys felt was really helpful, or kind of something that you can implement today in your homeschool? I'm just asking all the attendees. You can go ahead and type in the box. The reason we're asking is because we're planning to do more webinars like this and more videos, and we really want to make sure that we're providing the best content to you guys to really help accelerate your homeschool and get your children where they're loving math and they're maximizing their potential. So it looks like I might be a little bit behind in my internet connection might be a little slow, but not too many comments from folks. You can go ahead and just leave a note here, or you can email Larry or sales at Schiller Math. We see that either way. But other than that, we'll go ahead and announce our fractions kit winner later today. We'll announce it for the first webinar and the second webinar. So since you guys all stayed to the end, we'll go ahead and you're included in the giveaway. So that's one of our gifts to you, just to say thanks for showing up. Larry, any closing statements? Are you pretty good?
No, just really I just want to thank everyone for coming, and I hope you found it valuable.
Okay, perfect. Great. Thanks a lot, guys.
Great.
Have a good one.
Thanks, James. Thanks, Antoinette, and thanks, everyone. Take care.
Yep, we'll see you.
Take care.